Hey guys, let's try to do this hopefully for a third and more successful time, if you will. You know, like a lot of you, I watch reviewers like Nostalgia Critic and Bobsheux and many others. And one thing that we always like about them is when they talk about certain movies and movie franchises, that there's always something about these there's always something about these said franchises that get on the nerves. Most of the time it's the sequels. And why? Because if the sequel is a direct-to-video format, then you know in a sense that the direct-to-video may be good and it may be bad. One thing that Bobsheux has made a reputation out of is doing reviews on the Alpha Omega movies, and also doing a month's worth of reviews for the Land Before Time movies. The one thing that Bob brought up a lot is the inconsistency when it comes to said movies. They can start out good, then they can start out bad. And when they start out good or they start out bad, not a lot of people are very fond of where they can end up. If they start out good, that's one thing. They start out good, that's one thing. But if they start out, trying to work something. Like I said, if they start out good, that's one thing. But if they go from good to worse, that's another. When the Land Before Time movies, according to Bobsheux, started doing the follow-ups, some of the follow-ups were okay. The animation was decent, the stories in a way made sense. But as time went on, they started following a route that you don't want to follow. One, the animation wouldn't be as good. Sometimes you have a mixture of the songs being from good or bad. And then also you would start having references or characters mentioning things that shouldn't exist at their time. At the time period these characters are supposed to be portrayed in. Another thing that I think gets under the skin of someone like Bobsheux is the fact that, well, let's put it this way. The one thing I think that gets under Bobsheux's skin, especially when it came to the Land Before Time series, is the fact that it went from being just a standard animation classic, one of Don Bluth's masterpieces, to being a freaking movie series or movie franchise of 15 sequels, or 14 more movies I should say, the most recent being Journey of the Brave. And they went from being a good animated film to being a freaking musical film, being a good animated, potentially good animated franchise, to being nothing more than a musical. Because now every single movie from the second one all the way up to more recent had songs in it. Sung by the characters, by the newer characters, you name it. Now some people might say that the positive about this is they want to expand on the Land Before Time franchise and on the Land Before Time universe. They want to introduce newer characters to be part of that. They want to incorporate the adults finally to allow them to finally finally have important roles in the franchise. And that might be good and everything, but if you're going to do follow-ups to this, I think what Bobsheux said was best. You're going to do a follow-up, why not use the tagline, or use the, why not, how do I put this? Why not use the saying that was the narrator, the Charles Heston, the narrator, who was the narrator of the film, said at the end? That they all grew up in the valley together, sharing generation after generation the stories of what they had gone through. Why not use that formula to do sequels with? I'm just saying. Why not use that to do a sequel with? I'm just saying, okay? Because if you use that to do a sequel with, then that might make more sense because of one reasoning. It's staying in continuity. It stays consistent with the continuity of the first movie, because now you have them grown up in Land Before Time 2, and maybe have children of their own, that if you want to focus on the children, fine, because that bridges the gap of generation after generation. And if you want to continuously do sequel after sequel, follow that formula. Have those kids grow up, have kids of their own, rinse and repeat. It might get repetitive, but guess what? At least it follows, at least it plays to that narration at the end of the first film. Okay? At least it plays to the narration at the end of the first film. You don't keep the characters like Littlefoot, Sarah, Ducky, Spike, and Petrie young and innocent and young forever. Okay? You stay consistent with the continuity and you go from there. That's what you do. Because one thing I will give the sequel to Nim sequel, Timmy to the Rescue, whether you like it or you don't. The one thing I will give it, okay, the one thing I will give it is at least it stayed consistent with its continuity. Remember in the first film, Nicodemus told Miss Frisbee that because Frisbee's husband was experimented on by Nim, along with Nicodemus, Aegis, and Justin, that while Frisbee got old, her husband, Jonathan, would have remained young. Thus, we see that kind of come to light as we see Mrs. Frisbee now older, with glasses and gray in her fur. We see the Shrewd older. We see the daughters are older now, and we see Martin's older. So the thing is, even though it was a bad sequel in the eyes of many, at least they stayed consistent with the time frame and the continuity from the first film, and thus you had Mrs. Frisbee age. You didn't keep her young or anything just to say, oh, we keep her young, that makes her cute, and that's gonna make profit and everything for us. No. They stayed true somewhat. They stayed true basically to the first film in that part of the with that nod to continuity. The same with American Tail. Okay? Let's put the midquel, prequels to the side. But when 50 Goes West came out, they stayed true to consistency and continuity by taking Tanya here and aging her to what she is in here. Okay? And thus they stayed true to the continuity because they didn't keep her young, as a young, little mouseling. They made her older. They made her basically into a teen. Okay? At least they stayed true to the consistency and continuity of the first film, and they applied it in the second. Heck, even though it happened in its follow-up film, Balto 2, at least in Bobsheux 2, when him and Jenny had their child, had their wolf cub, they didn't keep the wolf cub young and everything for the whole film and then follow all that up in the third one. No. What they did is they had the young wolf cub grow up within the second film to the point that she had proven herself enough to go off and lead her own pack. The same with Kiara in Lion King 2. They could have kept Kiara young and all that, whatever, but no. Continuity-wise, they allowed her to grow up and be able to be on her own. Yeah, she still lives at Pride Rock, as people have said you can see in The Lion Guard, but they didn't keep her as a cub. Get what I'm saying? They stayed consistent with the continuity of the first film, and even within their own sequel, they kept consistent with the continuity. The point is, if you're going to do a sequel to something like this, play off what was said at the end of the first film. They grew up in the valley, generation after generation, and apply that to your sequels. The same could be said for Alpha and Omega. Alpha and Omega was a mediocre success, mediocre to semi-success in the theaters for the run that it had. But here's the thing: if you're going to do a follow-up film where Kate and Humphrey have wolf cubs, that's fine. You want to make that follow-up film take place during Christmas, that's fine. But here's the thing: if you're going to bring those wolf cubs back in the follow-up sequel after that, in the third movie, then at least be consistent with the storyline and consistent with the continuity, and age them. Age them to the point that maybe they're not as big as their parents, but they're halfway there. Put them in that adolescent teenager role. Well, like I say, they're half the size of their parents now. And then maybe by the fourth or fifth movie, you have them full grown and they're ready to take on the leadership of the pack. Basically have the howl passed on to them. If you do that and you stay consistent with it, okay, you do that, you stay consistent with it, then with the storyline and the continuity, then people wouldn't be as upset. Someone like Bobsheux, as himself or as Wolfenbob, wouldn't be bleeping up a storm because basically you want to not stay consistent or true to the continuity of the first film. But you see, all that aside though, that's not the only problem when it comes to follow-up films, especially The Land Before Time and Alpha and Omega. See, the one thing that really gets under the skin of someone like Bobsheux and anybody else is when you have these characters in these environments or time periods mentioning or referencing things that they shouldn't know about, or shouldn't even exist. They shouldn't know about or even be in existence. Like in one of the Land Before Time sequels, you have one of the antagonists mention in song about how her sidekick to her at times is like a bug on a bed. How does this antagonist know about beds? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because it doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense because guess what? Beds never existed. Bedding maybe, but beds like this turns into a bed shouldn't exist. They shouldn't have any acknowledgement of that. You take a look at some of the Alpha Omega series, and some of the characters mentioning things like jacuzzis or MJ or whatever. Well, maybe MJ you can make an exception of, but other things like jacuzzis, real estate and all that, they shouldn't know anything about. Heck, you have Brent in the more recent one introducing himself to Princess Kanyu, and you basically have him ask her, "I'm Brent," and you basically have him say and ask her, "Hi, I'm Brent. Do you tweet?" Brent is a bear in a forest, in a wilderness, in a forest, And he shouldn't know about tweeting. He shouldn't know what Twitter is. So those are things right there that can be real nuisances to people like Bobsheux and many others, because it's like, instead of staying true to the continuity of the original film, of the original source material, and being consistent with that, and allowing, let's say, these cub characters and the friends to grow up, and following them growing up, instead you decide to have these characters reference this or that they shouldn't know about, and then on top of that, you have these two new caribou characters in one scene when the queen and her when the princess and her mom are showing up, and when the princess is showing up, you have them breaking the fourth wall by talking to the audience as if they're commentating on a fashion show, and mentioning things like Pippa and all that. And it's like, they shouldn't know what Pippa is, and they shouldn't know what fashion is, and they damn sure shouldn't be breaking the fourth wall and acting like the freaking, fashion commentators commentating on a fashion show. This isn't Victoria's Secret. The point is, what I'm trying to make is, if you're going to make follow-up films and sequels, don't make them because, oh, well, the characters are cute. And the cuteness is going to make profit for us. Look, I'm not denying cuteness doesn't work. You go to my job, when people bring in their puppies or their young animals, the puppies or the kittens or the young animals, or they bring in they bring in their grandbabies or their young baby sons or daughters that are maybe a year or 6 months or 7 months. Yeah, the cuteness is going to pay off, because that's going to get the attention of not just my fellow associates, but it's also going to get and myself, but it's also going to get the attention of the customers around, who are going to be like, oh, they're so cute, they're so nice, how old are they? Let me ask you this. Do you think, in all honesty, those same kids being commented on at 7, 8 months, maybe a year old, are going to feel the same way? And, I don't know, are going to feel the same way in about, 15, 14 years? No. Mostly they're going to be annoyed. They're going to be pissed. You think a puppy or a cat or a kitten is going to be happy when someone tries to pet them a little bit and says, oh, she's so nice, so nice, let me pet them, they're so cute? No. In about a year or 2 or 3, that kitten's going to become a cat, that puppy's going to become a dog, and they're either going to scratch or bite you if they're not trained well. The point is, folks, cuteness works, but in time it gets annoying. And that's mainly what's happening here. Keeping characters like Littlefoot, Sarah, and their friends in the Land Before Time series young and everything is only being done for cuteness, and it's only going to go so far, to the point that someone at Universal or one critic or somebody's going to come out and say, enough's enough. You either age these freaking characters to you either age these characters, or you grow these characters up to adult size versions of themselves, else, or you just end the franchise right then and there. The same is going to be done at the Alpha Omega series. Someone's going to come in, if there's another film in the works, and they're going to say, look, you're going to do that, you better freaking age Kate and Humphrey's cubs and their friends to the appropriate age of grown-up or adolescent teenagers, which are half the size of Kate and Humphrey, and go from there. Because you know what? If they keep constantly keeping them the same age, it doesn't work. It's going to get boring, annoying, and people are going to get sick and tired of it. People are going to stop buying the freaking films. Heck, even the Flintstones were consistent with the continuity when they decided, after the original Flintstone run, hey, let's age Pebbles and Bam Bam to 10 or 8 years old. Oh, let's age him to about 14 or 15. Oh, let's age him to 16 to 17, as seen in the Pebbles and Bam Bam show, as well as the Flintstones Comedy Hour. Oh, let's make them totally grown up and on their own with jobs and everything, and have them get married and now have kids of their own. Guess what? It worked. And guess what? Hanna-Barbera did that, and guess what? It worked. People watched it, they bought the VHSs or the DVDs featuring these continuity, this consistency, the continuity with this happening to Pebbles and Bam Bam, and they enjoyed it. They loved it. The point is, folks, the point is, if Splash Entertainment, Crest Animation, along with Lionsgate, is going to continuously make and distribute the Alpha Omega series, they better damn well find a way to make the next sequel, if there is one, consistent in continuity, and age the freaking Cub characters to about half the size of the parents, if not full grown. And do some kind of a story that brings it full circle to maybe you're going to finally have Kate and Humphrey pass the torch to the kids that are now full grown and ready. The same with The Land Before Time. Grow those characters up so that whole growing up together in the valley comes full circle. And another thing as well, because I think this is the one thing that really kind of irks some people. True, it's not bad. True, some people may feel it's not bad, but there are some that are like, why even do this? It's not necessary. And that's adding musical numbers. You don't need to add musical numbers, especially some musical numbers that are easily, like in Alpha and Omega, are unnecessary, or in The Land Before Time, range from good or bad. One thing about these movies that a lot of people say helped them, one thing that made them a success and made them cult favorites is they were presented was the way they were presented as they originally were. There was no musical numbers, except maybe one or two musical numbers at the beginning and the end of the Alpha Omega series, or the original Alpha Omega movie, but that's one thing. That's one thing. A majority of the rest of the movie, unless I'm wrong, didn't really have that many musical numbers, if any at all. They had musical accompaniment, they had background musical accompaniment in the background, but that was it. Okay? That was it. The thing is when I look at both these films, when I look at the direction that both these franchises went, what really hurt them, like The Land Before Time, is you can do musical numbers that are good, but if they range from good or bad or don't make any sense, and the child actors are the ones singing it and not professional singers, then that's not a good look on your part. What you needed to do, if you're going to do follow-ups, is keep it the same way. You want to add a musical number in here and there, fine. Do one or two, that's it. You don't have to consistently put 3 or 4 in there. Okay? So if you're going to do, Universal, if you're going to do another one of these, 2 things need to be done. Okay? And Bobsheux, I know you would agree, 2 things need to be done. 1, grow the freaking characters up, finally. And 2, if you're going to do musical numbers in it, do 1 or 2 and that's it. Okay? And Splash Animation, Crest Animation, Lionsgate, if you guys are going to do another Alpha Omega sequel, 2 things. 1, grow the Wolf Cub characters up or make them adolescent teenagers, basically about half the size of their parents. And 2, if you're going to make another sequel, make sure it stays true to what made the original a success. In other words, no references to knowing what this is or that is. Okay? Keep it true to what it is. Bring characters that fans love. Bring fan favorites that fans want to see back, like Lily and Garth. Try to stay true, and at least on both your ends, make everything come full circle if you're going to wrap things up. So, my honest take on it is this. You're going to do sequels and follow-ups, that's fine. Major issue that needs to be fixed is stay consistent with continuity and don't keep certain characters young because you think cuteness is going to pay. Because guess what? In the end, it's going to blow up in your face. So, let me know what you guys think down below. Bobsheux, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to y'all later.